Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to decode a secret, nonverbal language you've been speaking your entire life without even realizing it. I mean, have you ever felt that sudden spike of anxiety when someone takes way too long to reply to a text? Or maybe you felt deeply disrespected when a colleague rolls into a meeting late? Well, what you're experiencing there isn't just a quirk of your personality. It's actually a profound, totally unseen framework that dictates how we interact with the world and everyone in it. Today, we are decoding that exact framework.
So let's dive right in by imagining a 3 p.m. meeting. Picture an American professional scheduling this and arriving exactly on the dot at 3. Now, every single minute that ticks by after that makes them feel increasingly disrespected and frustrated, right? But meanwhile, their Mexican colleague breezes in at 3:15, cheerful and chatting away. To the American, this feels incredibly rude. But to the Mexican colleague, arriving a little later because they prioritized a social interaction along the way, that's completely normal. They expect human relationships to naturally override the strict ticking of the clock. So who's actually right here? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack.
Section 1. The Hidden Language of Time, Uncovering Chronemics.
That clash we just described, it really isn't just a simple matter of rudeness or poor planning. It introduces us to a truly fascinating psychological and cultural phenomenon. To wrap our heads around this, we need to look at the concept of chronemics. The term was coined by Fernando Poyatos back in 1972, and basically, chronemics is the study of how we perceive and use time in communication. What it reveals is that time isn't just a ticking clock measuring the hours of our day. No, time is an active communicative resource. It's literally a nonverbal code, just like body language or facial expressions. How you schedule your day, how long you pause before answering a question, or how long you make someone wait in the lobby. All of that conveys really powerful messages about social value, respect, and authority.
Now, this field actually has a pretty rich history. It all started in 1959 when an anthropologist named Edward T. Hall wrote a book called The Silent Language, introducing this radical idea that different cultures actually perceive time differently. Fast forward to 1972, and Poyatos officially gives it the name chronemics. Over the decades, researchers kept digging, eventually developing concrete ways to measure all this, like the Polychronic, Monochronic tendency scale, which was validated in 2007. And this isn't just some dusty old history either. Right up to 2024, researchers like Allen and colleagues are actively out there studying cross-cultural meeting lateness, so it's very much a continuously evolving science of human behavior.
Section 2. Clock time versus event time. The Great Cultural Rift. The core conflict in our source material essentially splits the globe into two completely different temporal realities, and understanding this rift is absolutely crucial for global communication. On one side, you've got monochronic time, or what we can call clock time. Cultures with this orientation view time as a fixed, linear track. You do one task at a time, plans are sacred, and schedules are incredibly strict. But on the flip side, we have polychronic time, or event time. Here, time is fluid. It's cyclical. Multitasking is totally the norm, and human relationships almost always take precedence over some arbitrary schedule. The event starts when everyone is ready, not just because the clock struck a specific number.
When we look at this global breakdown, it's so interesting to see where these different orientations actually live. Take places like Germany and Switzerland. They are heavily monochronic. A 5-minute delay there is practically a crisis. People literally set their watches ahead just to avoid being late. Then you move over to the USA and Japan. They are very strict in business, but they might give you a 15-minute grace period socially. But then, check out Brazil or Argentina. Time there is incredibly flexible. A 30-minute delay is just part of the standard social flow. And in places like Saudi Arabia, time is flexible but heavily tied to status, meaning delaying things for a VIP is completely expected.
So, the crucial takeaway here is captured perfectly in this idea. Monochronic cultures manage time as a scarce commodity, whereas polychronic cultures treat time as a context for relationships. And the really important thing to remember is that neither approach is inherently wrong. The friction we see, the missed deals, the ruined dinners, the workplace resentment, that happens purely because of misunderstandings. If a Swiss businessman expects total focus on one call, while his Brazilian counterpart is splitting his attention and throwing in some informal chit-chat, they're going to clash. When we misread these time cues, we ultimately misread the person.
Section 3. Time as power and status. The psychology of waiting.
But chronomics isn't just about geography or where you grew up. Time is actively weaponized to signal power and status, and the psychology of waiting is basically a masterclass in human hierarchy. To really grasp this, we look at something called expectancy violations theory, or EVT.
In the realm of chronomics, when someone is unexpectedly late, it's seen as a violation of our expectations. But how we actually react to that violation depends entirely on power dynamics. Making someone wait is a display of what researchers call time privilege. A boss can easily interrupt a subordinate's schedule, demand immediate action, or keep them waiting in the lobby. But a subordinate, they rarely get to keep the boss waiting. The person with the higher status fundamentally controls the clock.
That 2024 study by Allen and colleagues proves this dynamically. The researchers looked at frustration levels when a meeting leader shows up late. In egalitarian, low-power distance cultures, places like the USA and the Netherlands, attendees get deeply frustrated by a late boss. They expect mutual respect and an equal adherence to the clock. But look at high-power distance cultures like Chile and China. The frustration is significantly lower. Why? Because culturally, they totally expect and accept the delay. The boss's time is simply perceived as more valuable.
Section 4. Chronemics in the Digital Age. Time in the Cloud.
Now, let's bring all this science into the modern day. Because you might think digital tools have standardized time, but actually our devices have completely rewritten this invisible language. Just think about how you communicate today. In a world where we don't always have face-to-face body language, how do you even know if someone is engaged or just flat out ignoring you? Well, Walter's social information processing theory shows that the literal time between our messages becomes our new body language. When we're online, chronemic cues, like pauses and response timing, serve as absolutely vital social information. A rapid reply might signal enthusiasm, while a long, drawn-out delay might scream disinterest. The digital time cues we have to navigate on a daily basis are immense. Think about it, leaving someone on read, working asynchronously, or managing that little last seen timestamp on WhatsApp. These are all high-stakes chronemic strategies. Imagine a U.S. manager emailing an Australian colleague at 6 p.m. Pacific time, expecting a synchronous, near-immediate reply. But the Australian colleague is already off duty, operating asynchronously. That mismatch right there can trigger intense anxiety and totally erode trust if it isn't managed properly.
Section 5. Mastering the Time Divide. Your chronemic decoder ring.
The source research gives us this incredibly practical three-step decoder ring. First up, set clear expectations. Do not assume everyone implicitly understands what on time means. State explicit start times, and always convert time zones for your global teams. Second, build buffer time. Pad your calendar to accommodate different cultural norms, maybe by scheduling meetings 10 to 15 minutes apart. And third, empathize with waiting. If you cause a delay, even a brief "thank you for waiting" really bridges the cultural gap and shows you respect the other person's time.
Simply adding a 5-minute buffer to the start of your global meetings is a tiny chronemic leadership move that instantly sets a respectful tone for everyone involved. It acknowledges that waiting time is a valuable resource, and it shows you are actively managing the diverse chronemic expectations of your entire team. It's such a tiny number, but it carries massive weight in international collaboration.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. Are you a clock watcher, managing time as a scarce commodity? Or are you an event maker, treating time as a fluid context for building relationships? And more importantly, how is your specific invisible time code impacting your relationships, your stress levels, and your success today? Because now that you can clearly see the invisible language of chronemics, you have the power to decode it, adapt it, and master it in your own life.